Hello, and on the gaming table today, we're taking a look at troop quality and morale in Command Decision Tested Battle. Now, in Command Decision, troop quality and unit morale are different factors. They're not the same thing in the game, so you can have troops with high quality and low morale, and vice versa. And this is one of the things I like about the game. Often games put these two things together, but in Command Decision Tested Battle, you can have differences here that tell you a story about what's going on for that unit. Now, if we look at troop quality first, the 6 levels are green, trained, regular, experienced, veteran, or elite, and obviously getting more skilled as you go through that list. Troop quality has some impact on shooting modifiers, so you get bonuses or penalties to hit based on your troop quality, but really the main effects here are on the survivability or resilience of a unit, so whether or not it's effective at taking cover, whether or not it's skilled at avoiding the main parts of battle damage from shooting, and so on. Now, given in Command Decision that a stand is a platoon, here what we're talking about is not individual soldiers taking casualties, but the effectiveness of the platoon overall as a fighting unit. And platoons can be taking individual casualties and retain combat effectiveness until they don't. And this is an interesting fact that research from World War II that was built into the design notes of the game says that platoons maintained effectiveness even with the loss of certain individuals until all of a sudden they didn't. It was almost an all or nothing thing whether a platoon was combat effective at this kind of scale. So what that means in Command Decision is that stands are not whittled down one by one. They're either there or they're not. And there can be other morale effects and things, which we'll see later, but generally speaking, a stand is on the table and effective at basically full effect, or it's not. And so there are only really 3 effects of fire on a unit. The first one is literally no effect. And by this, we don't mean that there's no losses, it just means there's no effect at the platoon level overall. The second result could be that the unit is forced back. So this just means it's pulling back to another position, it's moving back out of effective fire range perhaps, or it's seeking more cover. And the last one is just that the platoon's eliminated, it's removed from the table. But until it's eliminated, the platoon still acts at full effect in terms of shooting and other things. Hits in the game are resolved by a die roll and to see what effect is there, and it depends on the troop quality. So for example, if you've got trained troops on a 1 or 2 on the D10 roll, there is no effect on that unit. On a 3 to 6, they're forced back, and on a 7 to 10, they're eliminated. So they'll be eliminated about 40% of the time, and forced back another 40% of the time. However, if you're looking at veteran troops, 1 to 5 for them is no effect. 6 to 7 is forced back, and 8 to 10 is eliminated. So 30% eliminated, 20% forced back, and 50% no effect from hits in shooting. So basically, higher quality troops are more resilient and survivable in the game. They can take more incoming fire on average before they're forced back and before they're eliminated. So it's more likely that a more experienced or a higher quality platoon will stay in the fight. Now, when you come to morale, it's a little bit different. Morale is a number from 3 to 11, and it reflects the staying power due to morale effects of the unit rather than from shooting effects. Higher is less likely to fail tests. Tests are taken on a D10 with a number of modifiers. So you have to take a morale test if you take fire or if you're close to the enemy. That's defined in the game as being within 12 inches or 600 yards. Also, you can take a morale test for seeing high friendly losses in another unit. Now, morale tests, as said before, are taken with a number of modifiers. We won't worry exactly what those are, but basically the results that you can get if you fail a morale test by a little amount, you can become pinned. This means that you're stuck in position, you're less able to do things, you're less able to shoot, you're not able to follow orders as well when you're pinned down. You can also be shaken and forced back. Forced back means you're retreating, but also shaken means you suffer a temporary morale penalty until you're rallied by a senior officer. And similarly, you can be demoralized and forced back. So demoralized is similar to shaken, but just with worse effects. And finally, if the morale test is failed poorly enough, you can be completely eliminated. You could surrender if there's close enemy, or you could just flee the field. In other words, you're combat ineffective as a platoon. So the combinations of troop quality and morale tell a story about the type of unit that's there. So let's say you've got a veteran morale 9 unit. This unit is quite tough. It can survive fire effects quite well. It's also got fairly high morale. So this could be, for example, the lead elements of the German army going into Russia in 1941. They've got a lot of combat experience, they're veteran troops, and they've got quite high morale. Now, on another hand, you could have a trained unit with morale 9. So this unit is confident, but it's not very skilled. There are stories of regiments of tanks in 1941 in the desert, in the Libyan desert, where the troops had very high morale, but they were not very skilled in battle, and they charged off into battle quite willingly, but then because of their lack of training, they suffered quite a lot of casualties as a result. Now, you could have a veteran unit which has low morale, for example. So this one would be capable, but somewhat shaky. The desert veterans, the British desert veterans who'd been fighting pretty much continually since 1941, by the time they got to Italy or Normandy in 1943 or 1944, they knew what they were doing, but they kind of didn't really want to be there. They thought they'd done their bit, and so their morale was somewhat lower. And for another example, you could have a trained unit with morale 7. So this unit is kind of fragile in both respects. It doesn't have high morale, it doesn't have strong ability. This could be, say, Italian infantry divisions in the desert in 1941. Again, they're maybe not well led, they're not really motivated to be there, and also they don't have a lot of skill in battle. So that gives you a quick overview of troop quality and unit morale in Command Decision Tested Battle. As I said, they're not the same thing, and this is one feature I like about the game. Between these two factors, which are quite simple, they have quite simple effects on the game, but between the combination of the two of them, they tell an interesting story about the troops involved. So I hope you found that a little bit interesting. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.